Salutations, cadets, I am your Commander Pika. For all you titans out there, I'm sure you've seen everyone recommending Heart of Inmost Light and Storm Grenades with the recent revamp of Arc subclasses. But what if you don't own the Forsaken Pass and can't get it? What if you're a free-to-play player? Well, let's educate and get you equipped with a build that will rival Heart using underappreciated free-to-play exotics, Armamentarium, and Hellfire Heart. And for all you HOIL users out there, the tips and builds that follow will make it even more potent. But first, let's make sure everyone knows what we're comparing to and how we can mimic that power. Heart of Inmost Light is a Forsaken DLC exotic chess piece that revolves around your grenade, melee, and class ability. Whenever you use one, the other two become empowered for 10 seconds, which increases their recharge rate and potency. Use two abilities, the remaining one gets double the effect. For grenades and melees, their damage is slightly increased per empowerment tier, and with barricades, their hit point amount is increased. However, the main attraction is the boosted recharge rate. Empowerment times 1 is a 400% increased regen for grenades and melees, and times 2 is a whopping 800%. Class abilities see smaller gains with 150% and 300% regen respectively. For perspective, this puts a tier 10 resilience thruster's cooldown from 12 seconds to 8 at empowerment times 1 and 6 at times 2. For the longest cooldown barricade, it turns a bastion tower cooldown of 34 seconds to as low as 22 seconds at times 1 and 16 at times 2. When looking at what's meta now, which is Arc Touch of Thunder Storm Grenades, Heart takes its base tier 3 cooldown of 1 minute 45 seconds and shaves it off to 40 seconds with just one class ability usage. If you were to spam them back to back, that cooldown would go down to 16 seconds. 16 seconds by slapping on an exotic and maxing out your resilience. And that's a similar effect for all grenades and powered melees. This is a high bar to reach, but let's work some magic with mods. The center of this build will be the exotic Armamentarium. Free and simple, you just hold 2 grenades in total. But having access to 2 grenades at a moment's notice can be beneficial to holding down a wide area of enemies or putting more damage on a boss. For stats, much like Heart of Inmost Light, the core is tier 10 resilience. Not only is the resilience stat important in higher end PvE content, giving the player up to 40% damage resistance, but it also governs the cooldown of the Titan's class ability, which has the shortest cooldown when compared to your grenade or melee. So, the more often you can cast that ability, the more often you can activate Heart of Inmost Light. For the purposes of Armamentarium, we're using it to trigger mods and other abilities. The mods we will be using all drop from the world, so you will get them through playing the game eventually. No need to stock Venters or pray. To quickly get our grenade back, we will be using Bomber and Impact Induction. Bomber, slotted on your solar class item, grants grenade energy on class ability usage, a flat 16 or 20% based on slotting 1 or 2 copies. Impact Induction grants grenade energy on any melee hit, a flat 20 or 30% based on slotting 1 or 2 copies. This is unlike triggering HOIL's empowerment buff on melee hit, as that requires it being a powered or elemental melee. To allow easy customization after the fact for the endgame, we'll be using 2 bombers and 1 impact induction. To further reduce cooldowns, on your helmet it is up to your discretion which super regen mods you wish to use, although I recommend using the Space for Siphon mods to generate orbs of power and ammo finders. On your legs, again, whichever orb pickup effect you desire most. I highly recommend Recuperation to give you some health back, or Orbs of Restoration to give a small chunk to your least charged ability. For combat mods, free players don't have many options, but this season from the Gift of the Thunder God chest you got some sweet additions. Heavy Handed will allow you to get half your melee back when you are charged with light, and Stacks on Stacks will double that charge. So, the simple combo of taking charge, Stacks on Stacks, and Heavy Handed will keep your melee full. With these mods, let's see their effect. For your grenade regen, you have 3 simple ability combos to perform. First, 4-part combo, Punch, Class Ability, Punch, Class Ability. This will proc Impact Induction and Bomber twice each, resulting in a flat 80% of your grenade recharged all in as low as 14 seconds, needing no kills, just an enemy to punch and max resilience. How this affects your grenade cooldown, it would turn your tier 3 Storm Grenade base cooldown of 105 seconds to 21 seconds. For simplifying the combo, or if you're using a longer cooldown class ability, then Punch, Class Ability, Punch, resulting in 60% energy in roughly 6 seconds. So a tier 3 Storm Grenade would be 42 seconds. The limiting factors of this simple loop are safe enemies to punch and the cooldown of your class ability. For safety in the endgame, just rely on Bomber giving 20% grenade energy every time you use your class ability. And then your powered melee regen relies on generating orbs of power and using Heavy Handed. What makes this effective is that it works for all subclasses and gets even better with aspect and fragment combinations. So let's get into specific builds. On Arc, I recommend selecting between Storm, Flashbang, and Pulse grenades. Storm is the meta pick for their high damage and roaming, but Pulse is amazing for ability uptime with Ionic Trace generation. For melee, Thunderclap or Seismic Strike. I recommend the latter for use as a blinding tool and movement option. Thunder Crash is the go-to super, and your aspects are Touch of Thunder for boosted grenade effects, and Knockout for health regen and bonus melee damage. For fragments, you get to select 4. I recommend Magnitude and Shock for longer lasting grenades that apply Jolt for whatever build you go with. The remaining 2 can be selected from the following: Resistance, Recharge, Amplitude, Ions, Discharge, and Frequency. For this build, I will select Ions and Amplitude. That way we get more ability energy by generating ionic traces, and a means of creating orbs of power with ability kills. So now, whenever you throw a grenade, it'll jolt the target, and killing a jolted target will create an ionic trace, giving ability energy. Weakening targets will proc Knockout to boost our melee damage, melee hits will refund grenade energy, kills will trigger health regen, and Amplified. While Amplified, any multi-kill will create an orb of power, allowing to later refund half your melee ability and lower the cooldown of others, and weave some class ability usage to further reduce grenade cooldown. For more fun, pair with an arc demolitionist weapon like Ikelos SMG, Xenoclast 4, or Salvager Salvo. For Solar, choose whatever grenade and super suits your style. I personally opt for Solar or Healing Grenades and the Hammer of Souls super. Throwing Hammer should be your melee. It's a high-powered option that heals you on hit, but Hammer Strike is great for more ignition-based builds. And since Throwing Hammer gets refunded if you pick it up, you can trade out Heavy-Handed for high energy fire. For simplicity and survivability, Roaring Flames and Sol Invictus are your aspects, boosting your ability damage, ability regen, and sunspots as another means to heal yourself. This combo gives you 4 fragment slots. Ashes should be a go-to pick for any build, simply increasing your applied Scorch stacks. For a well-rounded build, pick 3 from the following: Solace, Torches, Combustion, or Singeing. If opting for a more Scorch Ignition build, then select from Blistering, Char, Eruption, or Wonder. With the well-rounded setup, rely on Throwing Hammer to feed grenade regen, make you radiant, and make sunspots that heal and recharge your abilities. The greater the ability kills, the higher the damage with increasing stacks of Roaring Flames, which also makes your uncharged melee apply Scorch. More Scorch on the field means faster charging barricades for more cover or to further reduce grenade cooldown. Going down the path of Scorch Ignition, create explosions that rain fire and give orbs and ability energy. Do so by using your solar-infused unpowered melee on a target, or maybe experiment with the Consecration aspect to blanket Scorch and ignite the field. All pair nicely with demo and incandescent weapons like BXR, Zeli's Bane, and Trinary System. If you don't need double grenades and rather have quicker abilities, then run Hellfire Heart as your exotic. In many ways, it's D2's original HOIL. Working only on a solar subclass, at base it grants an additional 75% grenade and melee regen, and when your super is charged, that rate gets pushed to 350%. Quite close to HOIL's empowerment times 1, allowing you to weave in your abilities more often. Turning to Void, choose Suppressor, Void Wall, or Vortex grenades. Melee is up to you, but Shield Bash provides suppression, movement, and a thicker overshield. Ward of Dawn is the more synergistic option with our aspects, but Sentinel Shield is great for ad clear. For aspects, Bastion and Offensive Bulwark. This pair will give you high uptime on your overshields, and when you have one, grenade recharge rate is 400%, like that of HOIL, with the addition of boosting your melee damage and lunge range. For fragments, you get 3. Persistence should be your go-to to make your overshields last longer to keep up Bulwark's regen effect. Select 2 more from the following to suit your playstyle: Instability, Provision, Remnants, Starvation, Harvest, and Undermining. I personally like Instability and Undermining to play with Void debuffs. To get the most out of this, we should tweak our mod selection a bit. Our generic mod list is great if you chose Controlled Demolitionist as your aspect over the others, but with Bastion and Bulwark, we don't need to focus on grenade regen. Instead, we need to lower our barricade cooldown since Bastion makes it longer than normal. Slap on 2 utility kickstarts on a stasis class item to cut it down to 21 seconds. Valuing more uptime on the powered melee for overshields, switch to momentum transfer on arc arms. With this build, every time we get an overshield, we get boosted grenade recharge and melee damage. Use your barricade and melee to get that overshield. Every time you hit and kill an enemy with a grenade, you'll get some melee energy back and volatile rounds on your Void weapon to further debuff and explode the battlefield. Get some weapon multi-kills for orbs of power to feed your combat mods. Great Void weapons to use would be Gnawing Hunger, 7th Seraph SI2, Yesteryear, and Corrective Measure. Hopefully I helped you learn something about the potency of mods and that you don't need things like Heart of Inmost Light. If you have it, yes, you probably should use it, but new and free-to-play players can mimic that power with a little build crafting. For all builds, try to pair them with weapons that match the subclass element or further feed into ability regen, like the ones on screen now. Or maybe experiment with Dune Marchers or Skullfort for more melee-focused builds. And for your troubles getting this far, how about one more quick build? This Super Suit will give you your Thunder Crash super back in 1 minute 20 seconds with no kills or high intellect. Slap on Curus for double damage supers, double dynamo on a Void helmet, and double distribution on your class item. With this, every time you use your class ability within 15 meters of an enemy, you'll get roughly 9% of your super. Pair with max resilience, thruster ability, and spark a focus to further reduce thruster's cooldown. Now just run and dodge next to your foes. Your super cooldown will get even faster when in combat as well. If you have any questions or builds of your own, leave them down below. I'm quite curious on what you all like to run. If you want to meet cool people and learn some raids and dungeons, feel free to join our clan and Discord, Sundog Gaming. As always, I am your Commander Pika. Be kind, have fun, and I'll see you on the battlefield.